Hey,
Hey, hey, hey.
happy Wednesday.
Oh, yeah, it is Wednesday. This week feels a little off. Like, I can't remember what day it is because, last week was Christmas. This Friday is New Year's. Uh, but yeah, this week's going by fast.
Well, and it's an even more bizarre feeling, I feel like, because this year has sort of been like, what day is it? And now that we're in the
Yeah,
holidays, it definitely feels like we're in that in between stage.
yeah.
But we're really excited to be here doing our Wisdom Wednesday. We usually do these on the fourth week of every month, and we pushed it last week because of Christmas. So we'll be back though this coming month in January. We'll do it at the end, um, like we normally do. And we're really excited to have a guest with us today. So this is Jonathan
Henry.
for music. Thanks for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Oh, we have our
Also,
first.
if you're watching us live, you're welcome to submit questions while we're talking or comments while we're talking. If you disagree with what we're saying, you can leave it in the comments.
Yeah.
But yeah, we want it to be a conversation and we want you to engage with us. So
Speaking of, we have our very first comment. They said, "Yo,
Yo.
hi. Thanks for tuning in." All right. Well, Jonathan, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and what you're currently doing, where you're located, and then we'll go from there.
Awesome. So yeah, Jonathan Henry. My artist name's Henry Henry, from Dallas, Texas, and just been doing some pop music the last year and working really hard and writing for my. Actually, right now we're writing for my debut EP that will release in August of next year, yeah, just been hustling the last year because we can't do shows. So just been writing a ton of songs. So yeah.
as soon as I saw that you had no vowels in your name, I was like, oh, he does pop.
So actually, it's an original idea. There's an artist named Madison.
Oh yeah.
She's actually right up the road from me. Here.
Oh cool. Yeah, I used to work with her at
Oh,
Integrity Music.
yeah.
Yeah, their marketing and stuff.
Yeah. So whenever I was kind of thinking about the whole when I rebranded, I saw her name and I was like, I just got to drop the E. That's all I got to do.
Yeah, that took a lot of meetings to land on Madison. Yeah, I was in those conversations. So yeah, that's fun.
Well, I think Henry's a great name. And since you only had one vowel, what are you really missing
Yeah.
out? So you had submitted some really good questions. So do you want to start? Which one do you want to start with?
Yeah, so I think let's start with the email one. So how important is email and SMS marketing? And then I guess a piggyback question is, does it matter where you get them? And how do you get them? As far as making your
Great
list.
question. Yeah. I think, first of all, SMS, I don't know if that makes sense for all artists. I think for some artists it may, be a good tool, but I don't think it works for every artist.
Yeah.
Because one, SMS, it's a little bit more expensive, than email. If you use something like MailChimp and things like that. To do SMS the right way, you want to use a service, similar to like MailChimp that handles the texting portion of it, receiving text. You could go, I guess, very, very low budget and use your own phone number or like a Google Voice number, but you can't really scale that. So I would say SMS I would maybe hold off on if you don't have a big fan base to start with. And if you think about like email or SMS, like you do want to have a plan on how you're going to utilize that information. So I would, start with email, because email has been around for a long time. People are used to getting, marketing emails or emails from artists. So you do definitely want to make sure you're having people opt into your email list. And there's a lot of, laws that protect privacy and things like that. So if you either purchase the email list from somebody like a third party, or you put emails of people that you know without them opting in. If you manually just like input emails from your contact list, that's technically not allowed. So if you're adding people to a marketing email list, you do want to make sure that they're opting into it, and you can actually go back and prove that they opted in at a certain time in history. So if you also think about like European laws, that's even more strict. So there's a whole thing called GDPR. You have to be really careful with if you're emailing or doing any kind of marketing to people in Europe. So you want to make sure you're aware of those things as well. So there's ways that you could partner with other websites or people to grow your email list, so that you're not trying to grow it all by yourself. And I don't know if like I'm allowed to say which websites offer this option, so I'll leave that anonymous. But there's websites out there that promote Christian music, that will partner with you to maybe give away a free song, and then people opt in, and they will send you their email list that opted into your specific free download. So that might be a good way to kind of boost that email list. There's other ways to do that. Noisetrade.com, they do email opt-in for free music. There's other tools that you can use. Noisetrade is great because they already have a built-in audience and built-in traffic that comes. If you do it your own, kind of like a DIY way, and maybe pay like a service, or even using like a MailChimp embed code on your website where people can enter their email and get your free music, or giving some kind of freebie. That's a good way to grow your list. It will take a little bit longer, and maybe even cost a little more if you grow it all by yourself versus using a website that already has that built-in audience. So you can definitely run ads. Let's say like you want to give away, if you have, let's say, like an EP that's a year old, you can give that away as a freebie on your website, for example. Use a service like MailChimp, and let people know, like, download my EP, and you can just have their like name, email. I think zip code is really beneficial too, especially if you're thinking about touring, because then that will give you information on where your big pockets of fans are, and you could kind of build a tour around that. So yeah, giving people the option to like opt in, give a little bit of information, and then they get something for free. And then you can, I think, email outside of phone numbers. I think emails are probably the biggest piece of data you can collect that will be long term beneficial. I think phone numbers are probably even better, because most people aren't changing their phone numbers nowadays, even if they move out of state. Like, I haven't changed mine since moving out of Nashville. So yeah, if you can start to build your email list. Another great thing about email lists is you can actually upload them to Facebook in Facebook Ads Manager, and you can target those people. So let's say you're able to build your email list to 5,000 people. You can run an ad when you release new music or new video, and target that specific list. But you can also create a lookalike audience in Facebook. So it's a specific audience built around your email list, and you can really narrow it to like the top 1% of lookalike audiences within Facebook. So they basically take the name, email, whatever information you upload, and they match those people up to Facebook accounts. I know this can feel kind of creepy to some people, but if you're on Facebook, you should probably know that this does happen. And companies are doing this all the time, and marketers are doing this all the time. And that's part of like, what you opt into when you sign up for Facebook, or Instagram. So yeah, using that to build a lookalike audience, and just getting a lot of impressions on your new music, new video content, things like that. So yeah, do you have any follow-up questions or thoughts?
Yeah. So what do you think? That was all good. What do you think the importance, or where does, let's say, an email or SMS campaign sit in someone's release strategy?
Well, for starters, depending on what you decide to go with, but building an email list is free at its most basic level. And it's an easy way to communicate directly to people. So to me, when I'm thinking about a campaign for anyone, this would be near the top of my list. It's free. And it gives you a chance to communicate with people and build relationships with them long term, which is really one of the major goals. SMS marketing, I feel like it can be successful. Like, I'm subscribed to a few artists that I love who, send out texts when maybe only a few times a year about things, that are really big for them. And I do think Wisdom's right. The other pro of SMS is that people aren't changing their phone numbers anymore. So assuming they don't manually unsubscribe, you're going to be able to contact them indefinitely.
Right.
But we talk a lot about how important it is to be able to directly communicate with your audience, and both email and SMS are really primary tools for doing that.
Sweet.
Yeah, and one really great tool that DistroKid has, which is a distributor a lot of people use, is the hyperfollow feature. So whenever you upload new music, it creates a hyperfollow, which allows people to click on the link, pre-save your music, and also give you their email address. So that's a really great way to even build your email list. And then I think the biggest thing with email is being consistent. So if you're only emailing people when you have new music out, that's not very many times that people are hearing from you, unless you're releasing music every week. So I would encourage you to even come up with a plan to email people once a week, and maybe it's on Tuesdays, around lunchtime or something, kind of depending on like where most of your fans live. You can time it where it's going to be the most optimal time and day. And email people not just promotional stuff, but like things that would really add value to their life. And part of that definitely goes into the brand strategy of like who you are as an artist and how you add value to your audience. So for example, maybe a worship artist might do like a short devotional every week and send out a devotional to that email list. Maybe you do kind of like a blog video or something, or write a blog post every week and send that out. And I think you could do some really cool things even with your email list and give them like exclusive content. So maybe you share like your demo for your upcoming release just to your email list, and that's a way to grow your email list, to promote that. So I think there's a lot of fun and like exclusive things that you could do to really build up your super fans and continue to grow your email list. And I've done SMS marketing at Integrity Music. We did it for artists. I used to oversee the brand called We Are Worship, and we used SMS all the time. And SMS, I think, is great when you have something that people would want to receive as a text and want to access, on their mobile device. So, maybe the next step after, really honing in on email marketing is SMS, and you can, send a link to Spotify so people can just tap on that and, open your song up on Spotify directly, or YouTube, things like that. But yeah, I think there's an investment to SMS that you do want to consider. And see if that's something that you want to do long term, and find the right service to help you scale that over time.
That's really good.
Cool. What else do you have for us?
Yeah. So this is a big one. So how important to find or figure out your artist's voice, and how do you go about doing that?
Your artist's voice. Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I actually really appreciate that you're thinking about this, because I think a lot of artists don't even think about it. Artists will think about their singing voice, obviously, like what style their singing voice is. But to really, when you talk about the artist's voice, that really has to do with your brand and who you are as as an artist persona versus, just like what people hear when you sing. And a lot of times I think it's an aspect of an artist, brand that people miss, like that artists aren't thinking about. I think even labels oftentimes don't think about it, and they don't come up with a very like intentional strategy around it. So I think it's very important. Another question that we had from it was a KD Music on Instagram, was kind of tying into this about how important is your story, like sharing your story as an artist, and is it more important than music itself? So I would say it is very important. It's just as important as your music, because there's obviously so many artists releasing music right now, and there's going to be probably way more in 2021 than we had in 2020. And so people aren't really like hungry and like desperate for new artists. So if you really want to stand out and differentiate yourself, you have to figure out who you are as a brand and what your voice is. So, and your voice can mean a lot of different things. Maybe, somebody watching this, their natural inclination is to use humor and be funny. And they're just a kind of a class clown kind of person. And I think, as an artist, you can really, use that and be intentional about how you use humor in your branding. And maybe your kind of like your strategy isn't to always post like very inspiring or like creative things, or encouraging things, but maybe you go more of like the comedic way of sharing just the funny side of life. And I think we all love humor, and humor, laughter is an emotion, so it brings like a very close connection with artists whenever you can incorporate emotion into your branding. So yeah, whether it's humor, whether it's creativity, some artists are just super creative, and just showing that on your social media and even your cover art, your website, like the way that people engage with you in every touch point, incorporating that creative side. So if you're that creative type, you don't want your website to just be like everybody else's. You want it to stand out. When people go to your website, immediately they're like, wow, this artist is super creative. Or when they go to your social media, they look at your feed and they immediately think you're such a creative person that has such an imagination. And you could incorporate that in so many different ways, whether it's like doing like a 9-grid post that looks really interesting and creative, and maybe it's the way you even do your stories, Instagram stories or reels, all those kind of things. And I think a way to figure it out, what your voice is really self-inventory, and also kind of like talking to your family and friends. And, if you have fans that you have direct communication with, even asking them directly, like, when you think about me, like Henry Music, what do you think my voice is? Or what's one word that you would use to describe who I am as an artist outside of music, So I think being introspective and doing, that audit of yourself, as well as, getting input from other people as well. And there's, I think different questions that you can ask that could kind of spark that conversation with people. So Kat, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things is just making sure that whatever you settle on really feels like it's the most authentic thing for you. If you're not someone who's not naturally funny, like don't try to be that person on social media and in your content. That is the biggest thing that is going to shine through to people is, people can feel when something is fake. And I think when there's inconsistencies between social media and who people see if you're on stage or who people see if you're in a smaller group, like those things start to, discredit you as an artist and really take away from whatever you're creating. So I do think too, with the rise of social media, what you're kind of looking at as an artist is more of a 360 thing. It's not just about your music anymore. It's totally about inviting other people to share in like who you are as a person and the story that you're telling them about the world or about God or about whatever. So to answer the question, I guess, very important. And then finding the artist's voice. I think what Wisdom said is really good. Like asking your family and friends, people who know you really well, like, what do you notice about me? Or what do you think is most natural to me? And then asking people maybe who don't know you as well and just what they've observed and seen can kind of help you find that space somewhere in the middle. But I was really thinking about how just before this, a friend of mine sent me this video on Instagram that I guess is kind of viral at the moment of this guy who's making these songs. They're like 80s-ish sounding pop songs that are based off of internet drama. Have you guys seen this?
Yeah.
I don't know his handle off the top of my head, but I was just thinking his account has grown, he says on his profile, from like 400 followers 7 days ago to 55,000 followers. But it's because he's someone who has the skills to make these really high production value songs in like 24 hours of stupid internet comments that are just people bickering back and forth. And for him, but like people can feel when stuff like that is genuine and authentic and when it's unique and fresh, and something like that can really set you apart from the rest of the artists out there.
Yeah, that's good. And then another. Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and when you were speaking about just being authentic and stuff like that, a brand that I think of is someone like NF, who really doubled down on just being super open and authentic, all the way across every channel, all the way, not just from the music, but even on socials. And I feel like that's something that really shot him to the moon, was just being super open and super authentic about who he is. And because definitely I feel like in the Christian music world, that's something that is not really seen a ton, is being authentic. So when you're talking about stuff that a lot of us try to kind of hide behind closed doors, I feel like that invites a whole nother audience into the room, because they're like, man, I feel that same way. So yeah, that's really good.
All right. I think you have one more, right?
One more.
Yes.
So what's the importance of having a team? And I guess if I'm going to add to that, I'll say, so an artist I was talking to, I guess about a year ago, I was talking to him because they just released a song and I thought it was really dope. And I was telling him, hey man, I love this song, really good. And we were chatting, and he's like, I think it would have hit 1 million streams if I had a label. And I was thinking, well, my thought is with a label, and I think definitely a lot of independent artists don't realize that other than the funding part of a label is essentially a team. I mean, that's what you're buying into, is a team that's going to come around you and that believes in what you're doing. So, and as independent artists, we still can do that without having a label. So what's the importance, I guess, if you want to just talk a little bit of the importance of having a team around you, and that because I feel like if you do that work as an independent artist and building a team around you, if a label thing is what you're looking at doing, that's going to get people's attention. You know, because they're like, hey, this guy or this artist is already, you know, doing the groundwork here. And so yeah, so if you will, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I love talking about this. I could talk about this for hours. So I've been, involved in Christian music in the industry for 15 years, and I've done music, on my own. Before that, I did hip hop, believe it or not, back in like the late 90s or early 2000s. And that's when I didn't know anything about the industry. I didn't know how to market music or anything. Um, and having worked in Christian music on the label side and doing marketing, I would say it's important to have not just a team, but the right team. I think that's where there's a lot of artists that end up signing to whatever, label or management or booking or whatever, and they end up signing because the opportunity is presented to them and they feel just super eager and excited. So they sign, they don't think through all the ramifications of it. And then they end up leaving that relationship frustrated, or hurt, or burning bridges. So I think it's crucial to have the right team in place. And even the comment with your friend that, maybe they would have had 1 million streams if they were signed to a label. The fact is, not every signed artist gets 1 million streams.
Right.
You only really hear about the artists that, make it, that are signed to labels. You don't really hear about the artists that they sign and they don't make it. They don't hit those numbers that the label projects in the 2-year contract or whatever, and then they get dropped from the label. And you don't hear about it because they didn't really make a splash, So most of us don't know about those kind of artists. I've worked with a lot of those artists that, we end up signing, and then, we just don't see momentum happen. I would say majority of artists that get signed end up not really making a splash, and they, have a short contract that ends, and they don't get those 1 million streams, So whether it's, a label or management or marketing team, I would say you need to know the right questions to ask when you're talking with people that potentially could be your team. We work with, a few artists right now that were signed to labels. They're independent now by choice. And we even work with their, management team as well. And we do function in a lot of ways as their marketing team that they would have if they were signed to a label. But I would say, like, from at least my experience, we are way more invested into that artist as a marketing agency than they would get maybe if they were signed to a label. Because the truth is, labels have A-level artists, the top tier artists that are pretty much bringing in 80% of the revenue, and that's where they have to focus. Otherwise, they're not going to have a business as a label. They're not going to exist a year from now. So they have to commit and like prioritize that top tier of artists. So unless you're that top tier, you're not going to get the high priority, and you're not going to get the investment even financially that they're going to get. So let's say you are in conversation with the label and you have specific things that you're looking for. So a lot of times artists want to sign to a label because of that marketing, side, the placements on Spotify, the marketing aspect of it. A lot of artists nowadays are making their own music, writing their own songs, or, working with producers on their own. They're not necessarily looking for A&R help, although that's great, that's a bonus. A lot of artists are looking for that marketing support. So I would say if you're talking to a label or whoever, you want to make sure that if the marketing side is what you really desperately need help with, you ask a lot of questions to make sure they will know what the heck they're gonna do with you as an artist on the marketing side. Just because they had success with so-and-so artist as a label, that doesn't mean they're gonna have success with you as an artist, because you're a different artist. So you want to make sure that their marketing team have expertise in your kind of music, and they have proven success with your kind of music, your kind of artist, and that they don't have like a very specific niche that you don't really fit into, or they're not even passionate about. Because I would say every label does have different niche, the sweet spot that they typically work with, a certain kind of artists. Of course, there's massive labels that have different types of departments and specialties that they have and experts that they have within their team. So I would make sure that whatever team that you're putting together, whether it's you're putting together kind of your own team yourself, which a lot of artists are doing that now, and we work with a lot of artists where we function as their marketing team. You want to make sure that they can bring value to what you're doing, and you're not committing yourself to something where it makes you feel good that you have a team, but they're not really bringing much value to actually help you make a bigger impact as an artist.
That's good.
Kat, any thoughts? Or
yeah, and to add to that, I mean, I think because this is something that I've kind of figured out about the last year is the same people. Because so what I would do is early on, so I've released four singles, and basically just did that with working with producers here locally. And what I would do is I remember getting the master back for one of my singles, and I'd listen to it, and then I'd listen to, like, immediately after, I'd listen to like Colton Dixon or someone in the that's established in the CCM world, and I'd be like, man, like I could totally hear a difference in quality in the mix. And I remember being so frustrated and thinking, all I want is my music to be able to go up to a stranger, be like, hey, this is my music, like, and be confident in that. And what I've figured out in the last year, and I think you had Chris Clayton on here not too long ago. He's another Fort Worth guy. But and he had said that all the producers that are working with, and the songwriters that are working with the Jordan Felizes and the Colton Dixons of the world, like, they'll take your paycheck just as much as they take, a label's check. Like, a lot of them have emails, like some of them have websites, like they're accessible. And that's one thing that I've realized in the last year, and kind of what started this project for next year, for me, is if I want my music to sound like what's, on the AC Hot or whatever, on the Billboard, like, I need to work with those people. And those people are accessible. They're not, because I think there's this like idea, because I'm in groups of other indie artists on Instagram and stuff. And, it seems like there's still this idea that, like, there's still these gatekeepers, and that, you have to get with a label if you want to write with so-and-so, or, and that's just not, I mean, I feel like maybe it's true to a certain extent, but I would say probably from my experience, every single person that I've reached out to has responded. And so from a music standpoint, because I feel like that's where it starts. Seth Mosley says that if the music isn't there, then it doesn't matter. So, So from a music standpoint, I feel like you can build a team. You can build the same, I don't want to say the same team, but you can build a team that's going to stand up against anybody that you're listening to. And then from a marketing standpoint, I mean, there's you guys. So, I mean, is out there that I just feel like there's no reason for the comment that artist made to me. I feel like there's no reason to really be able to say that, because you can build a team. Not that I'm not anti-label at all, but I think it's good, and I'm a believer in doing the groundwork yourself, and then if a label knocks on the door, then fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I always think it goes better for you as an artist if the label or the manager is the one knocking on your door versus you knocking on their door.
Right.
And I see, proportionately more artists knocking on the label's door versus the other way around. And if you are the one begging to get signed to a label, first of all, that's kind of a turnoff to labels. And also, even if they do sign, they aren't going to give you the best deal possible because they're not the ones pursuing you, you're pursuing them. So yeah, I think you're right on with everything you said. And I think, if you are good, and maybe not just good, but exceptional or remarkable, then people will notice you, whether you're signed or not. Like, people don't care whether you're signed or not, if they're gonna write with you, if you're amazing, if you're an amazing writer. I know so many songwriters that are successfully writing songs full time without a publisher. They don't have a publishing deal with anybody. They're self-published.
Mm-hmm.
But they've written so many, amazing songs over time, and they have a proven track record that big signed artists want to get in the room with these writers because they're on demand, or they're in demand, and they've written so many hits, or top songs or whatever. So they know, like, whether they're signed or a staff writer or not. Like, artists don't care about that. I think the people that really care about that the most is yourself, as a writer or artist, because that kind of, in a way, like, that validates you and your skills and, your gifts. But I would say, I actually have a note to do a video on this, which I haven't done yet. But the whole idea is, don't wait for somebody else to validate you and what you do, because then you end up tweaking who you are and not being authentic to who you are because you're trying to get validation from outside sources. And obviously, all the businesses that function within the Christian music industry, they're businesses. They're looking at things from a business perspective, so they have to look at, like, are you commercially viable? Are you, radio friendly? All these things that they are relying on for revenue to continue to, exist as a business. So they make decisions based on that. So even if you aren't validated by a label, it doesn't mean you suck. It doesn't mean your music isn't good. It doesn't mean you don't have a fan base. It just doesn't mean you're not the right fit for them, and what they're trying to accomplish as a company. So, yeah.
That's really good. Yeah. And I mean, to add on to that, like, I have friends that are artists and they're not signed. And I mean, one of them, they actually have, like, I think 3 songs have already hit over 2 million streams.
Mm-hmm.
And labels aren't knocking on the door for whatever reason, but they're from a Spotify, for streaming, I guess, standpoint, they're successful. I mean, and they're successful than like what a lot of even artists that are signed, as far as standpoint. So, and I think that was, seeing them do that is what kind of opened my eyes to, like, oh, well, like, I don't need to wait or, get this meeting with whoever to start doing work. I can do that now. And because, I mean, at the end of the day, I think anyone who's watching this wants to do music for a living or wants to, improve on that. But so no matter how that looks like, I feel like that really shouldn't matter, whether that's with the label or independent. So, but yeah, this has all been good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would say also, my final thought on the team thing is, I do know artists that are solo artists that don't have a team, and they just work their butt off to do everything themselves. And there's certain people that could do that. You know, I know artists that have spent like 10 hours a week for like 3 months, every, you know, spare time they had for 3 months to build their own list of curators on Spotify that they can pitch to. So it's doable. I don't think most artists are built that way though, because if you focus too much on the marketing or business side or admin side, you start to suffer on the creative side, you know, and being inspired to create music. So sometimes, you know, if you're really focused on building your brand and marketing, your art, you know, your product can really suffer. And then if that happens, it's kind of like, why are you even an artist? You know, if you can't create that, you know, piece of art that you really want to create. So that's why I think for most artists, it makes sense to have, you know, a team around you, because even the, you know, formerly signed artists that we work with, or even, you know, labels that we work with, they work with us not because they can't do it themselves, but because they could use their time to do something even better with their time, that leans into what their strengths are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and I think too, you kind of already touched on this, but if you're looking as an artist to sign a record deal because you think it will bring some sense of validation to what you're doing, it might in your own mind when you talk about it to other people. But like Wisdom said, the vast majority of people don't care at all about that. They care about what they're listening to, whether or not they like it, and whether or not you seem like an authentic person. And so I think as long as the goal is, you know, defining your own level of success too, and your expectations for that success early on, I think can help mitigate a lot of the stress of like, if I don't do this, I won't be successful. Well, if your goal was always to just make a living doing what you love and playing music, then like you're going to be doing that. And if you don't have a record deal, you won't be bummed or, you know, ashamed that you didn't meet this arbitrary goal. But having a team around you, like Wisdom said, can really give you the opportunity to lean into your own strengths and then let them take care of the things that they're good at on your behalf. But you don't need a label to build a good team. So yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Jonathan.
Having me.
Yeah.
It was fun getting to hear more about you. And can you tell us where people can find you? I'll put it on here. Like, where can they find you on Spotify?
Yeah, so Spotify is just under Henry. So HNRY.
Okay.
And then on Instagram, it's Henry_music. And then on Facebook is Henry, HNRY.
Perfect. Okay. Well, we hope that you have all so enjoyed our Wisdom Wednesday this month, and that you guys had a Merry Christmas and a very Happy New Year, and that you all stay safe. Be sure to tune in at the end of January when we do our next one. All right, guys. It was great to meet you, Jonathan. Thanks, Wisdom.
Thanks.
Thanks.